The old format, like remember, my fantasy MFLs had them forever.
That's where I started playing MFLs when I was in like college.
If they just put any time into, evolving with the times as far as a website goes, they could be on top of the world.
I know that website is run by EMAC. Jordan, you like that one.
Hey, good evening. Welcome to the Stokastic.com NFL Live Before Lock Showdown Monday night. This is our last Showdown show for the regular season. Sad stuff. No Thursday games. We do have Saturday football, which is pretty sweet. They've been doing that for a few years. Unbeknownst to me, I don't know where Matt, I don't know where either of us have been, because when I discovered that this morning and then told you, and then I realized they've been doing it for 4 years now, I was as surprised as anybody.
I thought they stopped on week 18, which apparently that used to be the case.
It did.
And now it's Saturdays. You mentioned it's all one division. I think if you're going to do that, that makes the most sense. A lot of week 18 is these divisional games. It might be all of them. I didn't actually look that far into week 18 yet. Is it every single game is a divisional game?
Every game in week 18 is, or in, let's say, the final week is always a divisional game. Yeah.
Okay. That's kind of cool then. There are obviously some complications, but I think if you're going to have Saturday games, having all one division makes the most sense.
How you feeling, man? We spoke earlier this morning. Not a ton of news. We did get our inactives, and I'll tell you this much: we've actually seen a pretty significant shift in the prop market in a lot of these spots.
That's the biggest thing. It's not inactives, which sometimes is the case, but we knew there might be some stuff and some changes because of the Lions playing for, not much. Garendo coming off an injury. They're also really not playing for anything. So yeah, my exposures are significantly different from this morning. We'll have to parse through it.
Me too. I'm looking forward to it. Fun game. If you weren't here this morning when we went through this, Dan Campbell, I won't read you his entire quote, even though it's good. But he basically said, I don't give a shit what you guys in the media think. Come at me now. This is what's going to happen. We're playing the win. Somebody tweeted at me today that were like, well, this game is actually meaningful because if they were to tie Minnesota and lose this one, it's like, yeah, look, I get all that, but in the grand scheme of things, historically, less than 1% of games have ended in a tie. Also, they shortened the overtime, Matt, and I still don't think we've had a tie since they did that.
Is that true?
Well, I don't know.
I mean, I don't know. I don't actually know. I'm thinking about it. I'm like,
I know
really?
last year there were no ties. When did they shorten it? Like 3 years ago? Maybe someone in chat can tell us. They usually bail me out when I say things that I don't actually know, but I think I do. But there haven't been any ties this year. And there weren't any ties last year.
That's a shame. We need more ties. We had the game where, wasn't it Staley could have had a tie and he messed it up by losing? Remember that game where if both teams tied, they both got in and Staley lost? It
was Pittsburgh Chargers, wasn't it?
I don't remember. I just remember Staley.
It was Steelers.
Of course.
It was Steelers Chargers, or it was like Steelers get in if Chargers lose or something like that. I know the Steelers were involved for sure.
Both teams would have gotten in with a tie.
Yes, right. Both teams would have gotten in. Okay, so the last time there was a tie, Colts Texans in 2022 was the last tie.
I remember it like it was yesterday.
And do you?
No.
Oh. And in 2021, Lions Steelers. I do not remember that.
Ties make me upset. So yeah, I don't.
It looks like each year there's basically, for the most part, it looks like one tie. Because I remember the Eagles tied the Bengals as well. Anyway, let's talk some football. My point being that regardless of whether you look at the tie as something to consider, or you just view it through the lens that I do, where it's Dan Campbell is play. I expect him. He's a guy I take at his word.
He's
I
never
expect
allowing a game to. We should have never even brought up ties. You think Dan Campbell's going to let a game go to a tie? He'll go for it on 4th and 17 from his own 1 yard line before he allows that.
100. They might be like, if you were to look at teams with the lowest likelihood of tying a football game, he has got to be at the top, right?
There's no chance he's letting any game go to a tie. I think he'd rather lose.
That's a great, like, all right, if it's week 18, it's 30 to, it's 30 to 23, Lions score with time running off the clock, kick a field goal or go for 2. You don't think he goes for, or kick an extra point. You don't think he goes for 2, do you?
Dude, I don't know with him.
He really might. You know what? He honestly might. Wait,
He's
no,
done some
I'm sorry.
wild stuff.
He wouldn't in that situation, because I think if they win this week with a tie, they would lose. But he knows all that. Either way, I expect them to play. The prop market would suggest they're playing. You're 100% right. That dude is not playing to tie. And on the other side, I don't know what to make of the Niners. This is a team that came in off a Super Bowl loss, Matt. Like, this is a team that was looking to get back to the Super Bowl this year. Are they getting up for a game like this? And does it even matter? We have one game to talk about. It's a showdown. From a betting angle, I think it's far more important than it is for DFS.
Yeah, there's so many complicating factors. There are players that are injured, playing through injuries. Maybe they want to take it easy. Conversely, there's players that have contract incentives that probably want to go absolutely all out. There's coaches on the staff that are probably going to get poached, maybe by other staffs. Maybe they'll go to some other place, but they don't want to lose games either. I mean, there's even the future contract stuff. Like, Purdy's trying to potentially play himself into a monster deal and not something like the Baker Mayfield contract. So a motivation for teams that are in the 49ers position is very hard to evaluate. It's almost like a player by player basis. As long as they're not ruled out or playing through something, I'm going to treat them as if they're fully healthy and fully going out there. Like, Debo's probably not going to be with this team next year. So, I mean, why would he pack it in? He's probably going to try to get paid somewhere or find himself a new home. So, yeah, I'm not going to really ding the 49ers that much. The Lions, if it were any other team, I might be dinging in this spot, but just like Dan Campbell going out there, I don't really see it.
I would say too that, and I mentioned that we talked about it this morning, but the offensive line for San Francisco is not in particularly good shape.
No, they have a lot of injuries. So do the Lions in the front seven, but I think it's easier to mask defensive line injuries than it is offensive line injuries. You can do all kinds of simulated pressures, bring extra blitz packages, load the box. The offensive line kind of is what it is. Once you start playing with backups, it can get bad fast. We've seen that with a lot of teams. I mean, people were earlier this year when the Rams had lost almost their entire offensive line, people were recommending them full sale everyone, like Kupp, Nakua, anyone with like a big contract. They're like, the Rams should just sell. They're not going to be competitive this year. And then the second those guys come back, they turn into a different team. It could be a huge factor in this game. It's very hard to balance with the Lions injuries on the other side of the ball as well.
Lions do have injuries. They got a little bit healthier though. They got a couple guys back. I don't know how much it helps, but let's kick it off. We reran the Sims. We got some results here. Definitely, you said it, different than we saw this morning, no doubt. And it always is, right? Like, you're always going to see adjustments throughout the day. We're just laying the foundation in the morning, then we come back here and really drill into it. Brock Purdy and Jared Goff, I'm getting a lot of them at flex. I think you should be in a game like today. Let's also not ignore one thing here. Regardless of, what I want to say about whether or not the 49ers come to play today, or what you think about Dan Campbell starting or sitting his players, I promise you none of that is important for right now. This game has a 50.5 point total, Matt. 50.5. You don't even see a lot of 50s anymore. What do we get each week? Maybe 150? Like, usually we're talking high 40s is a big number, which is weird, but you haven't seen nearly as many 50s this year. You have 50.5 out there in the Bay Area between two teams that can score points, particularly Detroit, but they're only 3.5, 4-point favorites. So getting to Purdy, getting to Goff here, both going up against banged up defenses. I worry more about Purdy because of that offensive line. But yeah, I'm getting to a good amount of them. And then this should surprise you none. Sam Laporta now at 5,800. And this is just a how the puzzle fits together type thing. Sam Laporta is my third highest exposed flex player tonight.
I'm not surprised by that at all. This was mainly something I was discovering hand building. You could play four of the studs in some combination, one of them a captain, one of the value guys like Pearsall or Tim Patrick. And then most of the time I was just landing on Sam Laporta as that last glue guy that made everything work. So I'm not surprised he came up for you. I think the biggest changes we saw in the day are just the running back workloads. There seems to be some concern with both of them. With Gibbs, if anyone's coming out of the game early for the Lions, it's Gibbs because of the David Montgomery injury. It's a position that they need Gibbs out there with his dynamic receiving ability. Honestly, his home run ability too from that position is very unique. And if you do find them winning this game, maybe by the spread or a little bit more, the first place I think you'd get a look is Craig Reynolds, Sion Vaki. And then with Garendo, it's just the guy is constantly hurt. And it looks a lot better given their injury report. But still, like at what point maybe do they want to ease off the rookie they have to balance trying to get a look at him versus him getting hurt again. And the injuries have hurt him throughout his entire career. This is not a new thing. He was like this in college too. So his prop also came down, which it kind of just spread me out across the board.
For what it's worth, I do like the Lions in this game. But I'm not going to play it too far from the spread. Still 4 points. Gibbs is going to be one of those guys though, that when I say I don't have as much Gibbs at flex and captain as I did before, I think there's absolutely no doubt, Matt. And this speaks to what you were just saying, that if you think, mind you, a lot of this is going to be dictated by the prop market. If you think that Gibbs is going to get the full allotment of opportunities and snaps here and the lion's share, I mentioned to you, I thought if there was one spot in this game where maybe they take their foot off the gas a little bit, would be the backfield, because I think with David Montgomery out and they really don't know his timetable, even though they're optimistic, this could be a spot where Gibbs gets a little bit less. But if you really do like Gibbs here and you think, you know what, Campbell's going for it, then I think this is a spot where if you're a Sims user, you manually boost Jahmyr Gibbs. If you're a hand builder or you're using something else, well, it depends on what projections you're using. But for me right now, I think I would still like to get a little bit more Gibbs than I'm getting, because this is such an explosive team on a one game island, an island game, that I guess it's like, what are my alternatives here? Because I still like the Detroit offense more than I like the San Francisco offense as a whole, right? As far as point production goes and yards go and touchdown equity. So I don't know if I actually want to get less Gibbs, even though his prop came down.
I think playing more of him in the flex could make sense versus the captain, just for the safety it provides. When we were talking this morning, which I still agree with, I think if you want to take a risk-averse approach and the workload would be maybe a spot to do this, you just go over to a little bit more 49ers. They're more secure. I think they're going to be playing for more. Even a guy like Jennings, although he was re-signed this offseason, there's not really a lot of incentive for him to check out early. Kittle, I don't think, is ever taking plays off. Debo is probably going to be on a new team. Garendo he's a very late round rookie. If he ever wants to play more in the NFL, he needs to perform well. And Purdy's playing for the huge contract. Plus, they're a little more condensed than Detroit. I do think Detroit is more explosive, and obviously their team total's higher. But you kind of know where the ball's going a little bit more on the San Francisco side. There's just one fewer player involved.
It's difficult too, though. Even if I wanted to boost Gibbs, I don't think I'd do it with a projection, because what am I supposed to do with Jamar Jefferson, Craig Reynolds, any of these guys? They got four guys they have four guys on the active roster tonight at running back.
I think that's because of the special teams for Vaki more than anything else. Like, a lot of teams will have four tight ends up or an extra receiver that's a kick returner or stuff. But Vaki is like a versatile player. He just happens to play running back. So I think that's why they keep 4 up. Don't quote me on this. I'm not, 100% sure, but that's my take on it. As far as Jefferson goes, I also think he's probably a pretty distant 4th in this backfield. A lot of people bringing up Jefferson. I'm seeing some of it in chat. He's not been active very often this year. Vaki's a player they spent a 4th round draft pick on. Reynolds is essentially the same version of Jamar Jefferson, but only better. They both have been kind of practice squad fodder for a lot of their careers, except you have Craig Reynolds playing ahead of him. So I don't really see the Jefferson angle very much. I think that's going to have to be some really, really deep cut style stuff. Like last week, he played 5 snaps and he had, well, I don't know how many carries he had, but I mean, most of them came on the final drive of the game against the Bears in like a slaughtering. So I do not think he's like actually in this backfield. I would rank him.
He had 3 and Reynolds had 4 and Vaki had none.
Yeah. And the snaps with Vaki, Reynolds has outsnapped Vaki 20-16 over the last 4 weeks. None of that like carry stuff when you're blowing out a team really worries me because like who cares?
Sure.
You're just throwing guys on the field randomly for meaningless snaps. I'm more or less looking like who's active, what roles are they playing in the offense? And Jamar Jefferson, I'm not even sure he gets an offensive snap tonight, as long as this plays like close to the spread.
Right. That game, what was that? The Chicago game last time?
Yes, and most of his snaps came on the final drive of the game when they were slaughtering the Bears.
Wasn't even competitive. Yeah, I'm boosting Gibbs though. I am. I did it. I'm doing it. Because listen, I keep coming back to the idea, and you're right. Like if you're not boosting Gibbs, then you get to more San Francisco because that would be the idea that maybe they play less. But last year in week 18, they had a very, very, very small chance of moving up from the 3 seed to the 2 seed. And it's not even like 2 seed to the 1 seed. It's the 3 seed to the 2 seed, right? And Dan Campbell still played his starters the entirety of the game. Like 90+% of snaps for all of these guys. Goff played every single snap. I just don't see why it would be all that different today with these guys. Maybe I'm wrong. This is, by the way, sorry, I don't mean to cut you off, but this week and week 18, you're just going to have to go with feel on some of this. Like some of it is you're not going to be able to drill down in the stats. You know what I mean? You're just going to have to say, all right, I think this is the most logical. And you try and get inside the head of some of these coaches. That's what I do with preseason. Sometimes, a lot of times it works. Sometimes it doesn't. I'm going to try and do the same tonight and probably a shitload in week 18 as well.
For the record, I don't think you're wrong on the playing time stuff, but it kind of goes like 2 ways because yeah, if they all play their regular roles, there's still a lot of guys that get the ball in Detroit.
Sure.
So for safety, I think San Francisco provides a little bit more of that just because you don't have any of those concerns in San Francisco. I'm not even saying I like them more. If you're just playing this risk averse or you're playing this, I don't know, closer to the vest, single entry, smaller field stuff, I do think going to the San Francisco skill guys makes some sense in the captain spot. And I've been going back and trying to look at some maybe potential matchups that the Lions have played recently that we could take some information from. Because they've played a lot of teams that have bad offensive lines. They played the Bears 2 of the last 4 weeks. They allowed at least 17 points in both of those games. They played the Texans in mid-November of a terrible offensive line. They allowed 23 points. I think the 49ers offense, as currently constructed, is on par or better than those. So I'm not really worried about them scoring points. The spread is competitive enough. And if we're getting a tight rotation of skill position players, even with the banged up offensive line, I still kind of think they're going to put up points.
I do too. It's a 50-point total.
Yeah, I mean, this game is actually sneaky awesome. I'm getting more excited for it.
It absolutely is. Isaiah, where was that comment? Because Isaiah H said, where maybe I lost it. I don't know.
Campbell wants them to get in a groove come playoffs.
Yeah, I mean, well, I'm not even talking playoffs. I'm talking week 18. I don't think, you know, I don't think you guys want them taken off. You said you could make the argument that it's better for them to play.
Yeah, you can make a lot of arguments. First of all, their defense is so new. None of
Hmm.
these guys were expected to play. You could make an argument they should be playing together to get reps under their belt. And then as far as like Ben Johnson and the offense goes, like how do we know they're not going to try out some new stuff that they want to maybe get in the playoffs, get some new looks? Coaches are always trying different things. There's just no way you can get in the head of all of them. So I think the motivation stuff is overblown. I personally will not be making docs on the Lions and captain. I'm just trying to make the counter argument. If you did want to do that, I do think going to the 49ers is viable, not just for that reason too. They are more concentrated.
Would you play any two running back lineups as far as the same team goes? We're going to get into our exposures in a second because my captain exposure is very smoothed out from this morning. But would you, because I don't think it makes any, you can't, unless you count Kyle Juszczyk
It's not the
and you
Super
want
Bowl. We can't play him.
to, yeah, right. And it won't, well, I'm going to have to wait till next year, brother. Gonna have to wait till next year. But would you consider like a Reynolds and a Gibbs or anybody? With a Vaki and a Gibbs or something like that.
Yeah, we simmed one this morning that actually came out pretty decent, I
I
think,
think it
if
was like
I'm
a
remembering.
50.
Yeah. And now it might sim a little better even because Gibbs is already pretty decent and that work had to go somewhere. So I'm guessing the Reynolds and Vaki projections are slightly better. But there's a couple reasons I think it might work. First of all, it's just price. You're getting one of the premier values in the slate. Like you're just saving so much salary. It's going to allow you to get to a lot of studs in your lineup, not just Gibbs. And then let's say this plays like to the spread. I still think there's a chance maybe it's Gibbs like in his normal role, or let's say like maybe 5 to 10% more of that. And the rest of that, maybe 75, 60% of the David Montgomery goal role going to those other guys, which is going to be valuable at their price tags. I think the first guy to come out of the game, even if it's like not a blowout, let's just say they're up by 7 or 10, but it's semi-comfortable and they have the ball back. You could see a couple snaps shaved off Gibbs. And that doesn't mean you can't play Gibbs. Even at his normal role with Montgomery, he's been playable and he's been awesome. He's only a little bit more expensive than that tonight. So no issues really playing them both.
Jordan, can you build a lineup for me? Go, if you have it pulled up, go Juwan Jennings, captain. See what happens here, man. I'm just going to try one with Gibbs and Reynolds in the single lineup sim. It's going to be Jennings, captain, and then Gibbs, Reynolds, say Kittle and Purdy.
I've really come around to Jennings today. I think he might be my favorite captain.
Yeah, I like him. I mean, well, we talked about it all show this morning. The volume he's been the most consistent guy on the Niners when it comes for like from a volume standpoint.
It's really surprising. And the blip on the radar, I guess, if you will, it's not really a blip on the radar. Well, it kind of is. Like last week with Debo getting more targets, in my brain, my dumb brain, I'm like, all right, Debo's back. Maybe he'll have a higher projection than Jennings. It's not the case. And then you go back and you're like, wow, Debo's actually only out targeted Jennings 3 times all season, and 2 of those came in weeks 1 and 2. You know what I mean? It's just hard to wrap your brain around Juwan Jennings, who's been the wide receiver 4 for many years, being ahead of Debo, who's been an absolute
Definitely.
wagon. So as I've thought about it more and really like dove into the data and stuff, I think it does make some sense.
I do too. And I have a good amount. He's a third or fourth highest exposed captain. And Jordan, throw Jake Bates in as the final play there and run it. Let's see if we get a positive sim. We'll see how it looks. I don't know, but it's worth a shot. These type of things, if you use the tool, make sure to build stuff. Don't build stuff to see how it looks, and then make iterations off of that. If it's not, there you go, 29% on the first run. So
What was it for?
would you do large field 15%? All right. Not
That's
bad.
probably the kind of lineup or the place you should be putting that.
Yeah, you don't want that in like a small field to 5%. or 5% the first.
I don't think so, but what do I know?
Okay, so check this out. My captains, I have 6 guys of double-digit ownership at captain.
Really? Ah, that's not that crazy, I guess. I guess I've got 4 and then a couple at 9.5.
So same thing.
Yeah.
Because I have two at 10 and 10.7.
Yeah, that's basically the same thing.
I got the Gibbs, Kittle, Laporta, Purdy, Jennings, and St. Brown. But then I've got 7% Debo, 7% Garendo, 5% Jamison Williams, 4% Goff. That's a lot less condensed than it usually is on these slates.
Yeah, it's interesting to see, honestly. But I mean, we got to make some stands somewhere, especially for the people playing one lineup.
So my stand is like if you're playing one lineup, even if you're playing 3 lineups, sometimes you got to tell a story with these showdown slates. Think of how you see this game playing out. Does Campbell go full bore? Do we in fact see a shootout here? I think if you're playing one lineup in these spots, Matt, you have to kind of not inject your own plays, but inject your own style of build, because you can't just cover every single scenario.
No, I agree with that 100%. And one of the things that I think I'm going to do is be a little overweight to Jennings and Kittle at captain. I've been trying to mess around between the larger field and the smaller field and see what it gives me more than anything else. On the larger field stuff, I was getting more Jennings. I think that makes sense. In the smaller field, I was getting more of Kittle. And we ranked these players earlier and ended up Kittle, then Jennings, then Debo. I think it's pretty close between Debo and Jennings, but Kittle would be by far and away the highest owned player. He does come with ownership, though. So I think in smaller field, getting him as my top owned captain does make a lot more sense. So some of those like higher dollars, single entries, smaller fields, Kittle, I think, is my favorite captain.
Kittle and Gibbs for me. And then Jennings. We had a comment in chat from JJ Hogg that said Debo's getting all the gadget plays and running plays with no real backs. Yeah, I said it this morning. They're trying, but they've just been, in large part, wildly unsuccessful using Debo in that capacity this year. Say what you want. The proof is in the pudding. Go look. Like, they've tried to get Debo going in myriad ways. And for outside of when's the last game Debo had outside of last week? That's not a trick question. I don't know. I'd have to look. When's the last good game we've seen from Debo Samuel?
Week 2.
Or was it the Seahawks
week 6
game?
was pretty good.
What was the Seahawks game?
That was week 6.
Okay. Yeah. And that was, I think, only on like 3 receptions, and he broke a 70-yard touchdown or something.
Yeah, he had 3 for 102 and 1, 4 carries, 15 yards.
What was his long reception? I mean, how about that as a steel trap memory, Matt? How about that?
That's good. Really good.
Oh, well,
I didn't know you were such an NFC West guy.
I'm not. I just know it's funny that Debo somehow, every time this guy plays Seattle, he pops off for 100 plus, like clockwork. Even this year, in a down year, Debo Samuel somehow managed to do it. I'm running one more sim, by the way. We got an update. We just got an update. So I'm going to run one more.
We'll do the same. Did you see the super chat earlier?
Oh, from Goody, was it? That I missed
Yes.
it? I missed it. Do you have it up? If not,
Yes.
I can grab it.
I
Go
have
for
it
it.
from Goody. It's a captain for the $100 spy single entry on DK. Struggling with this. Thanks, guys. That's kind of a tournament we were just talking about. Similar. Not the biggest of fields. I definitely wouldn't be using marquee settings. I think my favorite captain's Kittle.
Yeah, you'll never talk me off of George Kittle, ever, in any spot, not just today. I love Kittle in those, because Kittle's the type of guy that, could he give you a bad game? Sure. But he's not priced as somebody that is going to, he's not priced like Gibbs. He's not priced like St. Brown. He is priced over Jennings and Debo, but I still like him a ton. He also gets targeted deep downfield. This is not your prototypical tight end, right? This isn't like a guy that you're just using on like 6 yard, 6 yard routes. If you look at what Kittle's running, plus he's one of the best guys after the catch in football as well. So no issues with that. But I wouldn't, this probably isn't the answer Goody wants. There's just clearly not one good answer for that.
Yeah, there's not one clear answer. To rank them, I think it is Kittle 1 for me. If you made a good Gibbs lineup, I wouldn't be opposed to that. And then I'm on Ross St. Brown probably 3. For that tournaments like that, I'm playing it pretty close to the vest. And I think for the most part, Paul says you don't have a steel trap. You have the memory of a degenerate gambler. He's got a good point. But the thing is,
isn't that the same thing?
I remember my losses. Your bad beats, those stick with me more for some reason. I don't know why. So I must have not gotten buried that week. Marvin Jones is like my worst enemy.
Oh, especially on Christmas.
I don't know why this is. Maybe it's just me personally, but I always seem to remember the L's I take more than the wins.
Oh, not Christmas. I'm sorry. Marvin Jones on Thanksgiving would always be. Well, he was on Detroit for how long?
It's forever since I've been alive.
And always was a disappointment. You might be right, Paul. And Matt, to your point, I had bet over 100 rushing plus receiving on an alt line at like plus 350 for Debo that game. So of course I'm going to remember that. Of course. But, well, I don't know. I think it serves its purpose, doesn't it? My wife would tell you I have the worst fucking memory in the world. But
I can't remember anything actually important.
Exactly. Like mine's selective. I could give you wild stats and all. To me, it's impressive. Cully Poston, if Dan plays Gibbs a full workload, he's an idiot after what happened to Laporta last year. Super Bowl chances out the window if Gibbs is hurt. Yeah, dude, but that's just your opinion.
I don't even disagree with it.
I don't either. But what I'm saying is that Campbell doesn't, and thanks for the super chat, Campbell doesn't see things that way.
If it were my team, I mean, I'm not a coach for probably good reason. I don't think I'd play Gibbs.
I actually don't know what I'd do. I don't know.
There's like locker room stuff too that I just don't understand not being in there and probably wouldn't understand even if I was.
Let me just tell you this. I guarantee there will be a media firestorm next week if Detroit comes out flat and loses that game to Minnesota and they didn't play any of their starters this week.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, the media will crucify you no matter what you do.
You can't win.
Yeah, God forbid they actually show us highlights of the game.
Yeah, I know. Nate said, honestly think they can still win if Gibbs got hurt. At this point, they could get hurt. They could win if everyone in that team gets hurt. I don't know how they do it. But yeah. From Mitch Farrell said, how much salary are we leaving? I'll be honest. It's not something I've really considered. My guess is very little on a slate like this. This is not a Jacksonville Jaguars, Las Vegas Raiders type game. My second Sims run is coming up now, but I can tell you I don't think it's going to be. I can tell you. Yeah, I don't think it's going to be a ton with how the salary breaks down today.
No, I have very few breaking like the 1K left on the table. The great thing about the Sims tool is it projects duplicates as well. And you can kind of like do the math yourself. Okay, who's on this slate? Well, we have a very robust group of studs at the top. You have both QBs, 2 tight ends in play, at least 5 receivers we feel pretty good about, 2 running backs we feel at least decent about. I mean, we're approaching like 10 guys that you'd be very comfortable ended up in your lineup. You can only play 6, so that helps right away too. Then we have a couple value players like Pearsall and Tim Patrick you feel decent about. Kickers, defenses, even lineups that maximize salary, unless you're really trying to like play the optimal, you shouldn't need to worry that much about duplication tonight. And I think the Sims tool shows that too.
I would agree. There's just you don't have to do anything insane here. I really don't think this is one of those slates where you have to go nuts at all. Just from the way I'm looking at this now, I even there's other showdown slates, Matt, where like if you put 2 uniques in on the Sims and you favorite a bunch of lineups, it's all over the place. I just tried it with 2 uniques and it's like, yeah, almost all of the top lineups are still favored. What I'm saying is there's just so many different ways to build and get close to the 50K cap.
Yeah, these slates are fun, especially if you have a take and you can play it without worrying about any sort of duplication, or at least a lot of it. I personally like these slates more than others.
So
As much as
that's,
that, as fun as that Packers slate against the Saints was, I prefer this.
well, I don't know. That game was good. Seattle, Chicago was better.
I was watching college football. Thank goodness I didn't have to turn that Bears game on.
I bet the Bears.
I haven't watched a single Thursday night football game this year.
I've watched all of them.
Well, I've watched football every Thursday, but it's college.
Right. You haven't missed much. Actually, that's not true. There've been some really good Thursday games, some really good ones, matter of fact. But yeah, they covered 3.5 in a 6-3 game. Brutal game.
I'm supposed to be a Bears fan, so I woke up to that egregious game. The score, at least.
Isaiah H. I need that tool. Talking about the Sims, Matt. Well, there's a very easy way to get that tool, my friend, by doing essentially nothing. If you're on your phone or you're on your desktop or an iPad, whatever it may be, expand the description. You see that? It says join any sportsbook, get Stokastic Sims free. That's exactly what it is. That's our core package too. That's $100 a month package. That includes the sim up to 1,000 lineups, generate up to 1,000 lineups, get the post-contest sim, the post-contest simulator, all this stuff to incorporate into your process to just simply make you a better player. Get the single lineup sim that we just built a lineup out with earlier. Matt and I build them out every morning when we do these shows. Sad to see them go. And all of the other tools for free. Here's what you do. There's 4 steps. You can't mess this up. It's nearly impossible. And if you do, maybe DFS isn't for you, but I have faith. If you're trying to get the tool for free, click claim offer on any of those sportsbook offers, okay? On any of them. Jordan can scroll down and show you. Click claim offer. And if you're in a non-legal betting state, but you have access to pick'em sites like Underdog, that works too. Click claim offer. It'll take you there. Take a second to sign up. Instantly verify yourself in a minute. Deposit, usually a 5-10 minimum deposit, and place that on whatever you want. Do it on the game tonight. You could sign up mid-game and place a live bet and have the tools by tomorrow going into this week 18 and have a full month for week 18 plus all the way through the Super Bowl. Yeah, not bad. I guess it would be right leading up to the Super Bowl. Click claim offer, place a bet after you sign up. Once that settles, all you do is take a screenshot of your settled bet, take a screenshot of your welcome email, right? Or welcome email from the site, and email it to us at support@stokastic.com. That's all there is to it. And if you wanted to sign up for 4 books or 4 pick'em sites, well, you get 4 months. You could get PGA, NBA, NHL, and MMA, and all of the bonus bets that are included by signing up, and all of the first match deposit bonus that you get on these books and pick'em sites. All of that for doing nothing but following those 4 steps. So that's how you get it. Link in the description and the pinned comment. Check it out if you haven't done so yet. Have you done any Underdog best ball or playoff best ball? Because I got to jump in, I think, this week.
I haven't done them yet. I was actually planning to start maybe right after this show. I like to do, I usually do all my best ball work at night before I'm going to bed throughout the summer. That's when I was doing them all in the playoffs last year. And it's pretty settled at this point. I don't like playing them in like late November, early December.
No.
When teams like the Bengals, you're drafting guys that might not even make the dance. I know you can get some super teams. You can also get some really dead teams. In my experience, the field is soft enough. Like people just don't know how to play these things, with most of the prize money being locked up in the Super Bowl. They're just drafting teams left and right, or drafting players left and right from all over the place. But all that to say, yeah, I plan on jumping right in here soon.
Me too. It's a fun format. It's a tough format, but it's awesome. And it gives you skin in the game throughout the entirety of the playoffs. Man, and if you get teams through with the right, because like the one thing you want to do, if you can, right, is when you're drafting, I'll give you guys a tip. By the way, $250 first match deposit bonus, 50% up to $250. So you're supercharging that out of the gate. the one thing you want to do is make sure that you're stacking a team from each conference, Matt. Like you got to at least, I don't know, maybe you can win otherwise, but the end goal is having a team where you've got some form of players from each team that make it to the Super Bowl.
Assuming you're playing the flagship, the goal is to, yes, have a full roster in the Super Bowl. Only 2 teams make it. So generally, you're stacking someone in the AFC, someone in the NFC, and hoping your team gets there and you can field a full roster there. And a lot of times, you're going to end up with players like Kenny Gainwell. What I would recommend is if you have like an Eagle stack going, don't go out of your way to draft maybe like, let's say Christian Watson falls. Yeah, 1-for-1 in one game, Christian Watson's going to be better than Kenny Gainwell. But if you already have the Eagles, you've already made a bet on them to win the Super Bowl. Having Kenneth Gainwell score 4 points is better than your auto zero with Christian Watson.
Yeah. Yeah. So hop on Underdog, grab a free month of Stokastic while you're at it. Anyway, you ever have questions, hit us up. We're happy to help you guys out. Let's talk value plays here. We still got some time to go. We have guys like Reynolds, Tim Patrick, Pearsall. Patrick and Pearsall feel, if we're not including Laporta here, because Laporta just looks great, but I think Tim Patrick and Ricky Pearsall do look like the guys. And I have a little bit of a thought, could be wrong. Again, sometimes you just have to inject some of your own ideas when you get late in the season like this. I have a feeling maybe you just start seeing more of a guy like Ricky Pearsall who got shot and then did not play through the first half. Why are you laughing at a guy who got shot? That's horrible.
Yeah, the only thing you can really laugh at with guns is like Plaxico Burress. So
that was funny. Yeah.
So I'm sorry, Ricky, but I'll laugh at like Plaxico Burress stuff.
Yeah. But he played 72% of snaps last week. So maybe, what do you think? You think maybe they just try and get him the ball a little bit more?
His target share has been all over the place, but you'll hear this narrative. They want to get a look at guys. I don't think that really makes a lot of sense at some positions. This one kind of does. I mean, he was the 31st overall pick. He missed the entire offseason, basically. He was injured coming out of college. Then he got shot, so he missed the first part of the season and a ton of camp. I mean, they should reasonably get a look at this guy. They do have some receiver decisions to make. What are you going to do with Debo at the end of this year? I think they move on. But I think part of the contingency plan, whether it was Ayuk or Debo leaving, and in this case, it looks like Debo, that's kind of why you drafted Pearsall, so you could move on from one of those guys. So yeah, I mean, if he stinks, it might make a decision more difficult for them in the future. He is one player I think that would be a part of the game plan.
You know what's crazy too? He got shot in the chest.
Did you see the video
of him like going to the ambulance or the
Yeah, he's fighting off his attacker, gets shot in the chest.
Maybe I didn't see the fighting off the. I feel like
I don't think that part is in the video.
Oh, okay. Yeah, it's crazy. The guy was trying to steal a necklace, right?
Something like that. I don't know. Ricky Pearsall's an all-American badass.
Yeah, and if he wasn't before, he certainly is now. Incredible.
He also has like one of the sickest college football catches of all time.
I know exactly what catch that is. That the corner end zone or the left side near the end zone?
Yeah, he's like going behind his, I don't even know how to describe it. It's a one-hander that was bananas.
I know exactly what you're talking about. I do. And I don't even watch college. Was he on the Gators?
Yeah.
Yeah.
He was on Arizona State. He was on the legendary Herm Edwards Arizona State team that had Jaden Daniels, Ricky Pearsall, Ayuk. That's not even all. Man, I can't even remember. But yeah, he messed it up. Transferred to Florida.
Trying to see if there's anybody I don't have a ton of that scares me. Like I don't have a lot of St. Brown at What's that?
Jameson.
I don't have a ton of St. Brown at captain either.
I'm like kind of middling on him. I'm at 9%.
You are? Okay.
I also did run it just to talk for talking purposes. I got more of him in smaller field stuff. When
more who?
St. Brown at captain. I did this for Goody when he asked the super chat just to see what it would give me. St. Brown became my third most owned captain in small field.
All right. That's it. So you're getting more in small field than, well, I guess that makes sense because you're probably getting, Yeah, I can understand why that's the case. Jameson is scary though. You're right. Not getting the Jameson Williams. Is he someone that you're like well underweight on?
He's not super owned, so I don't feel underexposed to him by a significant margin. But anytime you see him at like 15% of your lineups, you're like, well, it's kind of nerve-wracking. But he's not going to be super owned, so it's not as scary as it could be.
It's not, but he's also legit just a guy that could go for.
Well, that's the thing. Even if like the field doesn't, let's say he's like 17% on tonight and you don't have him, it's like, okay, can't win, you can cash, but
Right. I actually boosted him a little bit at captain. I actually like Jameson Williams more at captain than I like him at flex. If I were to boost him and just not have a lot of Jameson Williams exposure, I think I'd rather have more of him at captain and just get it there. So if the ceiling game happens, I have live lineups. You know what I mean? Because he could also just give you like a 4 for 60 and nothing, then who cares? But I'd like to have some exposure at the captain spot today.
completely agree. I did something similar. Okay, big question. Where did you finalize Garendo?
7% at captain, which I don't even like. I wish I had less. 20% at flex.
Okay, I'm a little higher than you. 9% captain, 27% flex. I say this because you asked who are you worried could bury you? I think my second answer would be Garendo. They just
Right.
give their running back, no matter who it is, 90% of the work. It's crazy. I thought we were going to see additional backs, not just Patrick Taylor. Then lo and behold, at the end of that game, Patrick Taylor played 51 snaps, 80%. Now he didn't really do that much with it, but still, it's like, my goodness, at what point are we gonna mix it up
Right.
a little bit?
You're absolute people might look at that and go, oh, he only had 8 carries or whatever it was, but they were playing from behind. He played almost all of the snaps. And by the way, the only other snaps went to Kyle Juszczyk. It wasn't Keyshawn Vaughn. Bonacanda still hasn't even been active. It wasn't any of those guys. It was Kyle Juszczyk. So like any meaningful, actually touch the football type of snaps went to Patrick Taylor. And
You're
and
right.
I
He had 10 of 12 running back touches.
exactly. And I wondered, I think I talked to Ben about this. We were like, okay, so, or it may have been Greg saying, how far do you go down the depth chart until you stop just giving the next man up all of the carries? Apparently the answer is never.
I kind of think that last guy might be Patrick Taylor because like Vaughn and Abanikanda were literally signed at the
Yeah,
time. Like
they would elevate Abanikanda and just split it between him and Vaughn probably.
so, like Taylor at least had been on the practice squads. I mean, he's at practice for most of the year. Abanikanda is coming off the street. Same thing with Vaughn. So I think that last guy is actually Patrick Taylor.
That's still 5 running backs though, if you include Eli Mitchell, McCaffrey, Mitchell, Mason, Garendo, Taylor. That's still 5.
I also think like they would use Debo if they were playing for something more than they are. Like we've seen full Debo games.
Or if Debo could do anything in the backfield.
They should just give like if I was Shanahan, which I'm not, I would just give Juszczyk a full game. Like week 18.
That'd make you so happy, wouldn't it?
Yeah, it would be awesome.
The
He's
guy
not
for
even
me,
one of my favorite players, but he is wildly versatile.
the one that worries me the most is, and Zach Daniel said, just tuning in, still feeling like Lions starters play full game. Yeah, man, but that's just a couple people's opinion here based on what we've seen before. Freudian slip said Craig Reynolds. Yeah, look, it's not
He's
crazy.
fine.
Yeah, not crazy at all. What I was saying, the guy that scares me the most, I do not have a lot of Amon-Ra St. Brown at captain.
He could bury you, but he needs a lot. Where he operates, he's not like Jameson Williams, where he is like the nuclear bomb detonation catches usually.
That is a good point.
Like, do you think you'd be buried if Amon-Ra goes out there 8 for 89 in the score? I don't think you're dead.
You're not. You're not.
That's a great game.
8 for 89 and a score, you said?
Yeah.
All right. So that's 23.
At his price, I think that's not significantly better than someone else. That's also
Especially in a game with a 51 point total.
yeah, I'm just guessing.
I mean, if I told you you could have 23 from St. Brown before the game starts, but you got to play him at captain, or you could have 18 from either like Juwan Jennings or Debo Samuel, one of those guys.
I think I'm taking the 18 from Jennings
Okay.
or Debo.
And obviously
Who's cheaper?
that's
Debo?
1.5. I'm saying it's 1.5 times 18.
Oh yeah.
Captain. I think I'd probably take Jennings too. There's a lot of guys who could be optimal cap. If you just ask me like, who's the optimal captain today? I don't know. St. Brown, Gibbs, Kittle, Jennings, could be Debo, could be Garendo. Do you have what's your here we have a couple minutes to go. I appreciate all you guys hanging out. It's been a very fun season. We're not going anywhere, but this is the last, Monday or Thursday game of the regular season. So thank you. And I forgot to mention at the top, if you haven't done so, take a second. Tone, hit that thumbs up, subscribe to the channel. It's free and it helps us. It goes a long way and we appreciate you for it. So before you bounce, hit that thumbs up. If I had to ask you, like, who's the optimal captain? What are you really going to say here?
Kittle.
Okay. That's just because you like him.
Well, I do like him, but I think price adjusted, he's the strongest play when you factor in ownership. And again, I fully agree with your take that this is a very hard slate to determine captain. It's not like we have Lamar Jackson on the slate and you have to ask yourself, all right, well, am I playing Lamar in the flex or the captain? There's not really a guy like that.
True.
Which leads to a fun slate. But if you force me to pick one guy, it is Kittle. And I do like him a lot. He's probably my favorite tight end in the league who's not named Darnell Washington.
Do you have quarterback captains today?
Very few.
I have a little bit. I have a decent amount of Purdy, not a lot of Goff.
I came in around the 5% mark on both.
Okay.
A lot of flex. You brought that at the top. It's a lot of flex for those two guys.
That seems reasonable.
I think so. You don't have any Lamar Jackson type ability from either of them or Josh Allen rushing stuff.
Wow, it's so spread out. I just wanted to see what this would look like if I did 4 uniques. Like, how far down do I have to scroll, Matt, before I stop seeing lineups? And this is for a 20 max. Yeah, it's still positively simmed ROI lineups. Still and that's with 4 uniques.
That's bananas for a showdown slate. I don't use any uniques for showdown.
It's crazy. I'm willing to. On a slate like this, I'm absolutely willing to.
Now that you say that I am, but I'm a little late now, and I feel pretty good about where I'm at. Didn't get a lot of dupes.
I'm not saying it's the optimal approach. I'm saying that this is, I was very surprised to see that many, like, still quality lineups appearing with the 4 uniques. But yeah, it's a good one.
Yeah, I mean, we're sitting here right exercise.
Now. What's that?
It's almost like a thought exercise.
Yeah, exactly. We're sitting here now with a few minutes until kickoff. We don't actually know what Dan Campbell's going to do. We don't actually know what type, if any, motivation the 49ers have in a meaningless game in a lost season due to injuries. We're a few minutes away from kickoff in a game that might be awesome, and it might just, like, I might be DMing you at 9 o'clock and going, all right, well, that was wrong. I don't know. I think that the starters all play for Detroit, and I think we get what we normally would, kind of just par for the course Detroit Lions football, but I don't know.
I think that's the case too. I'm taking Dan Campbell at his word. I'm going back on what he did in week 18 last year. Whether you think that's right or not, I don't think that matters. We're trying to predict what he will do, not what he should do.
Right. What he should do means nothing. You're right. It's just a matter of what are we going to get out of this guy? We'll see. Appreciate you guys. Hey, have a great rest of the night. We'll see you back here. Let's see. I got picks for every game on the OddsShopper channel tomorrow. That's a fun one. That's going to be a haul. And then we got first look for week 18. You got college football picks coming out on the OddsShopper channel tomorrow?
I think Ben is handling it this week. But yeah, I mean, the playoff starts tomorrow. We get the playoff on Tuesday and Wednesday. And I have not been doing them because I've just grinding the projections for these games, man. Figuring out who's playing, who's not playing. It's like 2 full-time jobs right now.
Yeah. Well, they can find your work everywhere. Check out the CFB Sims and all that good stuff. Appreciate you guys. If you decide to come hang out, whether it's for Portfolio EV, whether it's for Stokastic, go ahead and join the Discord. Say hello. If you ever have questions, my DMs are always open over on X. Anyway, we'll see you back here for the next one. Peace.